Action fanatics, welcome to another edition of the Bulletproof podcast. Chris the Brain and Chad Cruz with you. At least I think this is Chad Cruz with me, because Chad, I mean, you in your busy schedule, you managed to go see a brand new movie,
I did.
and you've arranged for a special guest for the show. I mean, this is not the Chad Cruz I normally talk to.
That's right. That's two things that I've accomplished in a matter of days. And that's pretty rare for a guy like me.
I know. I'm like, is this really Chad or the pod people invaded?
Right. And not only did I arrange for a special guest, but I brought in what I would consider an expert on the topic that we're going to be discussing today. And you can hear him laughing in the background because I called him an expert. But the man that I'm referring to, of course, is a man that I'll be referring to as Cap. But he is the captain. He is Ian Garriot. He is probably the biggest Batman fan that I've ever met in my entire life. And, you know, with this new film coming out, I thought, who better to go to than a man whose expertise I trust and I respect. And now he's got to be coming on here and probably just trashing all of the creative ideas I have for the new series, which is just released this week. So welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Brain. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to talking about one of the best superheroes ever out there.
Wow, there you go. Yeah, so thank you, Ian, for joining us and providing your expert opinion on everything related to the Batman and what a movie that is. But Chad, before we get into that, of course, we want to remind everybody to check out bulletproofaction.com. Something new each and every day. I know I saw you hard at work on some post, and you know that's always, again, is this the Chad Cruz I know? Yeah. You're very busy this week with Bulletproof Action activity, and we're going to be very busy talking about the Batman. But right now, let's take a quick time out for this message from the Geekscape Network.
Hi, friends. The world got you down. Don't be sad. Listen to $2 Late Fee with Zach and Dustin.
$2 Late Fee is the podcast that celebrates the best decade of entertainment, the 1980s. We pick a movie and soundtrack from our youth that we loved and see if it holds up today. We also interview your favorite celebrities from that era.
All in the spirit of positivity and togetherness. Check us out at $2latefee.com.
All right, we are back, and we are kind of going to deviate from our usual format here and just kind of have a free-form conversation about the newly released The Batman, which all three of us have had the pleasure of seeing. And let's kick it off with Ian. What was your, I guess, first thoughts as this movie started up for you?
Okay, so usually it takes a little bit. I could go through every Batman film I've seen and tell you at like what point did I know this was going to be a good film or a bad film. But so when I started sitting down for this film, I really stayed away from most of the media reviews. I tried to stay away from everything that was released. I wanted to be totally shocked when I walked in there, and it took. I knew I liked that first fight scene where. Batman fights these Joker thugs that are in the subway, and they're beating up this guy. But I had seen that scene in a preview already, but I already liked it. But honestly, as soon as the Nirvana song kicked in, I was sold. And I think that remix of Nirvana, "Something in the Way," really like set the undertones for that entire film, and I was all in at that point.
Yeah, really the perfect song. I mean, it just matched the mood of the film completely. It just, yeah. And, obviously it's one of the great things too when you watch a movie in the theater, because you just get instantly immersed in this world. Chad Cruz, your thoughts?
Yeah,
early thoughts on the film.
The early scenes of the movie really kind of, like you said, it set the tone for the film. Both the sound design, the music, just the style of Matt Reeves, the director. If you've seen the newer Planet of the Apes films, he's done all those, and he really had an idea of every time a Batman film comes out, we say, oh, this one's darker, it's grittier. It's like, it seems like there's only so dark and so gritty that you can be. But this film, without going into that film noir kind of look, it really it feels like a real city that exists. Um, the music, the Nirvana song, I guess like the story of Kurt Cobain and Matt Reeves really wanted Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne to be similar to Kurt Cobain, where he's got all this money, all the money in the world, but he doesn't want it. He doesn't want the lifestyle. He doesn't want the fame. He just wants to, dress like a bat and fight people.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because Ian, I don't know if you remember this. I don't know if you remember it, Chad, but like when 1989 Batman was coming out, the talk was how dark and gritty it was. And I'm sure you're comparing it to the Adam West television series. Yeah, absolutely. But now compared to what's followed it, I mean, that's like a Technicolor fever dream compared to what we're getting now. And yeah, definitely the darkest and grittiest of the Can it get any darker or grittier, you guys think?
Oh yeah, I think the sky's the limit, really. And if you're asking me, I think there's so many things I really enjoyed about this film, and I know we can talk about those later. But when you ask, could it get any grittier or darker? I think it can, because I do believe that PG-13 rating held it back. Like when I was watching this film, and the more it played out close to that 3-hour time frame, I was loving it. I mean, I loved the ride all the way through, but I'm like, man, I just wanted that one step further. So could it get any darker? I think it could if you had an R rating.
And I think that the villains that they use going forward, I do believe that Matt Reeves signed a 3-picture deal, or Robert Pattinson signed a 3-picture deal. So it may become a trilogy, it may become more, who knows. But I think depending on the villain that they use, it could really change the tone. If you use, I don't know, if you use another female villain, or if you bring in the Penguin as the main guy or something like that, maybe it's not as dark. But if you have like Victor Zsasz or whatever his name is, the serial killer guy, I mean, there are ways that you could kind of shape this film in an even darker way. And I don't know if they'll go that far, because there's seems to be more money in PG-13, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that is why they went with the PG-13. They wanted it to have some edge, but you still want to have it to as many people, as many eyeballs that can go, especially in today's world where obviously the movie industry has definitely taken a hit over the past few years.
And I do believe there were a couple of F-bombs dropped.
I think so. I think they're allowed, I don't know, 2 or 3 if it's PG.
I think they used every one they could, because I remember hearing it and thinking, hey, this is PG-13. Yeah, both of them. I was like, hey, there's an F-bomb. But they didn't seem out of place. They definitely fit. And I would say that this film kind of pushes that PG-13 to the max. And I've got a 7-year-old boy at home. And when I had told him I was going to see Batman, he was, his reaction was, can I come? And I said, well, I would love to take you, but it is 3 hours long and I'm not dealing with that. And
how about the Lego Batman? Let's plug that in.
Lego Batman would be much better. And I wasn't sure. I've seen the trailers for it, and I said, it's got a certain tone to it. And I don't know if it's right for him yet.
I think he made the right call.
Oh yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree. It's just like the Dark Knight. When I walked out of the Dark Knight, I really thought I had watched an R-rated film because of just how tense it was throughout. And and I know they want to make things PG-13, but it's like I do think times are changing. Like a movie that's PG-13 today, or a movie that's R-rated today might be PG-13. Who knows? 10 years from now.
Right. Well, I think that Jaws was actually rated PG.
Right. It was.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, who knows? I mean, because you think about, like, there's F-bombs on basic cable now. If, you get into 9-10 o'clock hour, they're dropping F-bombs on some of these series that are on cable. So I guess not a surprise they were able to squeeze a couple in on a PG-13 movie.
Right.
Hey, Brain, if I can,
sure.
You were mentioning 1989 Batman, which of course I love that one too. I saw that on a VHS tape, so I was around 16, 17, somewhere in there. Just give you a time frame.
Yeah, I remember going to the theater to see it, but not right away because I mean that thing was huge. I mean that thing owned the summer of 1989, and it was later. It was probably more like August when I finally got to the theater to see it, and yeah, and it so much. I mean, again, they talked about how dark it was, and another thing, they Michael Keaton. There was kind of those who were like, "Who? What the
Yeah.
hell? Mr. Mom is going to be
Right.
is going to be Batman? That's ridiculous." And obviously Robert Pattinson had the same type of initial reaction, like the Twilight guy is going to be Batman. That's some
Right.
bullshit, but
Right.
he pulls it off and then some. I mean, and he's perfect for the way they're portraying Bruce Wayne.
And I think that we're going to get that with every superhero out there. We've gotten it with every Batman for sure, for certain. Christian Bale came out and people are like, "Oh, you mean the Newsies guy?"
Right.
Or the American psychopath guy. Like, so every actor, I mean, unless you've never had a role, and then they're going to, piss and moan about that.
Right.
So Robert Pattinson has done a ton of awesome work over the last, probably 6-7 years. And I don't know if that's a product of he's trying to get rid of that Twilight stink from him, but he certainly isn't afraid to act the hell out of a movie.
But Chad, I know you and I had talked before this podcast about the upcoming film, and people they all ask me, always, who's your favorite Batman? What do you think about this new guy playing Batman? And all the way back from when the Christopher Nolan Batman was announced, it's like, I just give him a chance. I want to give him a chance, and I want to see him on the big screen as Bruce Wayne and wearing the cape and cowl, and I'll judge for myself then. And I think you're right. I think he nailed it.
And I think it goes up and down the cast. I mean, it was perfectly cast movie, up and down. I mean, Jeffrey Wright as James Gordon, perfect.
Oh,
he
yeah.
was the right man for the job, if you will.
You know what I like so much about him is that he is not, as an actor, not a personality that takes over every film that he's in. I feel like Gary Oldman. Every time I see Gary Oldman, I'm just waiting for him to be my favorite character of the movie. So I'm glad he wasn't in it. And the same with Michael Caine, the same with Morgan Freeman. These guys are guys that you remember, like every film that they're in, you just feel like you've seen them a million times. But Jeffrey Wright, who I've also seen, I don't know how many times, but a lot. He's never really just taken over a film, but he's always there and he's always amazing in everything.
Yeah, the character takes over for him, and he just brings that character to life. You're not seeing Jeffrey Wright, you're seeing whatever character he's portraying, I think.
And this is probably my favorite version of Jim Gordon to date of all the actors who've played him. This is probably my favorite Gordon.
Yeah. I appreciate Jeffrey Wright. I liked him. Really started to notice his work after Casino Royale. Right, that's the first time I really noticed him, when he was the CIA agent working with James Bond, and then watched him in some other shows as well. But I'm not going to say he's my favorite, but I do think he is. He's close to the version that they want to portray. And how I explain that is, I do think a lot of this movie was based off of a handful of comics that were written back in the 80s. And I think his version was closer to the Frank Miller Year One version. And I really appreciate what he did as Gordon. Are you familiar with Year One?
Yeah, you know what? Actually, a little bit of research. I know, Brain, you're surprised by this again. I read Year One, reread it like 2 weeks ago in preparation for this. So it's very fresh in my mind. And maybe that's why I love the Jim Gordon so much, because as you said, that in Batman Year One, he's new to the department. He just seems like he's the only one out there who's not corrupt, who's trying to make a real difference. And he's a man who has his own demons. He's got issues at home. He's got a partner that he's having this relationship with, but all the time he still kind of believes in the work that Batman's doing, and he believes in Gotham City as a city that's not, it's worth fighting for.
And let's talk the Riddler. What a creepy character. Again, I went into this movie knowing almost nothing. So I didn't even know who the villain was going to be. And
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
oh, what the hell? He took me by, grabbed me by the throat, basically, like he did everybody watching, and just was like, okay, this guy's a freaking serial killing psychopath. And what the hell is he going to do next? Kept you guessing the whole time.
Yeah, I have to say, man, the trailers for it and things of that nature, it didn't make me that excited. I remember Paul Dano from There Will Be Blood, and he was
Yeah.
incredible. He was incredible in that. Like he looks different than every other actor I can think of. And I mean, I guess the tone of this character, I didn't love the mask. I didn't love all that, but you can only do so much with the character before it goes into camp. And I'm really happy they didn't make him more campy. They didn't give him some ridiculous costume.
Right.
But what they did do is they almost gave him like, he had like his own origin. I can totally see 5 years from now a sequel where the Riddler is in it again, and he's gone even further with his costume, and there's question marks all over it. And he's not Jim Carrey crazy, but he's got more to him when it comes to costume design.
Yeah, see, I'm going to. I went and saw this movie with my son, who's almost 18, and my wife, and the Riddler was her favorite, like in this entire film. She told me that afterwards, and we talked about it in length. And I do think he was creepy. He was jealous, like playing the role, and he was he was a psychopath. And I think Matt Reeves really kind of tied into the movie Seven. The killer that was running around the city with, torturing those people and leaving clues. Even I thought there was a lot of similarity to that, but it didn't cheat it. I felt they're both strong in their own right. And Chad, I liked his costume. It reminded me of Pulp Fiction and the Gimp, just a little bit different, right? But I thought the glasses on the outside is what made it for me. Like, just if he would have just been wearing the leather, I'd be like, okay, it's another guy in a leather suit.
Right.
But he puts the glasses on the outside, and I'm like, all right, now that's creepy as I look at it.
Yeah, they must not have LASIK in Gotham City.
No, they don't. It's expensive, dude.
Oh, I know. That's why I still wear glasses. So yeah, and that's the other thing. Like I said, I knew this. Well, I actually didn't even know exactly what it was coming out. Chad, it was you were like, oh, that new Batman's coming out. And I was like, it is? Like, I knew there was a new Batman coming out at some point. Right. But again, the movie world has been so jacked up for 2 years now.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, who knows? Like, maybe it was supposed to come out, but now, like John Wick was supposed to come out later this month. Nope. Now it's 2023. So things are getting pushed around, and I didn't even know. I didn't see any trailers. Just knew Robert Pattinson was the guy because people were bitching about it online when that was announced. Who knows how long ago? So, obviously when you see him from I'm seeing him, I'm like, I didn't even know it was the Riddler until obviously he starts going and he's leaving his little riddles and clues and all that. And it's like, okay, because he did not look like Frank Gorshin or Jim Carrey.
Right.
He was very much just like, okay, is this I'm thinking, is it just some guy like deep into the Batman, universe that I would have no freaking clue it is? No, it's the freaking Riddler, and I damn well know who that is. So
it's funny because I thought, especially as the movie kind of came towards the end, that they were portraying, I don't know, the Riddler, Edward Nygma, or whatever we want to call him, the Riddler, as like the term incel.
Oh yes.
I thought that's what he was kind of that's what they were making him. Like, the dude who shot up the theater out in Colorado several years ago. Like he is this weird online guy with all these followers.
And you know what? When I saw that, I started thinking that, and I'm sitting in the theater. I'm like, oh my God, this is like the real frickin' like it again. It was so realistic. This movie could happen. Basically, like all the other superhero movies are like, yeah, this is fun, fantasy. This is like, no, this could really happen. And this guy could be really just walking around amongst us and we wouldn't know.
And I love the whole, like, he's leaving riddles for the Batman. He's bringing him in and making him a part of his whole plan. And his plan includes so many like important people, not just to the story, but important in Gotham as a whole. Because even though some of the characters were introduced in this film, they really didn't have a ton to do. And I'm sure they'll be in the next one and the next one after that. But it was really cool. I mean, I think it's a great character to kind of highlight in a film, because other than Jim Carrey, and even that was kind of debatable whether that was the Riddler, but other than Jim Carrey, you don't see much of the Riddler. So despite him being a brilliant guy.
Right. And being one of the mainstream villains, that a casual person would know as a Batman villain. Like, that's where I think, like, with Bane, like, did a lot of people know who Bane was? I mean, I guess if you were a fan of the animated series, you probably knew more, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say no. I would say no.
So it's like, you think of Batman, you think of Joker, Riddler, Catwoman. You think of basically the ones who appeared on the TV series and then based in cartoons and everything since then. So, all right, what about Catwoman? I know this is we might lose Chad Cruz after we have this conversation.
Yeah.
He gets a little hot and bothered with Catwoman.
I'm already looking at pictures of her. Hold on one second.
Ian, why don't you step in while Chad's doing whatever he's doing?
Yeah. So I thought she did. I'll tell you the truth. The first preview I saw, the first teaser trailer I saw, I should say, I was like, man, this movie's going to be awesome. Then they showed the second trailer teaser, and then I saw the third one, and the third one had more of the Catwoman in it, and I checked out. I said, this is, I don't know what they're doing here. This doesn't feel like the first two trailers I watched. So I went into this film thinking, why do we need another Catwoman? We've already had Michelle Pfeiffer. We've had the 1966 Catwoman. We've had all these Catwomen already. Why are we redoing this? And she comes in, and I watched her, and I actually was going in there thinking I wasn't going to like her. By the end of it, I thought she did a great job. I thought she did a great job on her own, and I fell in love with the costume. At first, I didn't thought, it was just like a sock hat. I'm like, what is that? But then near the end, I'm like, all right, I like it. And her character, her Catwoman, again, is a tie to the Frank Miller. The more I watched it, I'm like, this is Frank Miller's Catwoman from year one, which is a younger African-American female, athletic, thief. It's kind of like she's like her first year or her second year stealing, just like, Batman has established himself in the first couple years in this film. She's kind of learning the ropes as well. And I thought the fight scenes were decent. They weren't the best with her, but I thought they were decent. I like that she rode around on a motorcycle. So I thought she did a good job.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, from the moment she came on screen, there were like audible, there were noise in the theater, because, I mean, she's gorgeous, I think. And I felt like the way she moves, the way she walked, I mean, it was all part of the character, just the way she kind of tried to move like a cat. But the costume, it really worked out. Like you said, like Cap was saying, the beanie that she had, the tattered beanie or whatever, it looked way cooler than I thought it would look from the trailers. And I don't know about the whole connection. I don't want to spoil anything too far, but the family connection she had in the film, if that's like, I don't think that's comic book accurate, but it worked for the movie, and I think for the character, and then the decisions they made with her character throughout the film kind of worked for me too. So I thought it was great. I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer is still my Catwoman, but I thought she did a great job.
And talking about that costume, I think it just, again, this is such a realistic superhero movie, if you even want to call it a superhero movie, that makes more sense. I mean, she could then quickly take that beanie off and just blend in with the world around her, as opposed to wearing a freaking latex suit. Like, it's gonna be a little bit hard. Like, oh, who's that? Shiny woman walking down the street.
Yeah, it's like every time she steps, you hear the latex.
So
and we got to watch her get dressed, which was like probably my second favorite scene in the movie.
Okay. Did you want to tell us your first, or you want to wait for that?
No, I'll have to think about that one, because the other one,
okay, so you really
stole most of the space in my brain.
Okay. All right, and here's another one. And you mentioned, at this point, this movie's been out for 2 weekends. So again, we probably will be spoiling it, but you've had 2 weekends to check it out, people. So it's on you. Carmine Falcone, played by John Turturro, is that a character from the comic books, or is that just an invention for this film?
It's yes, he is a character. Yes.
Okay. That was what I was wondering. And Turturro is like excellent. You believe him as a mafia boss easily.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So his name is Carmen the Roman Falcon. Falcone is what everyone refers to him in the comics, and I guess one of the main stories with him is the Long Halloween, which was drawn by Tim Sale and written by Jeff Loeb, and that's like a 12-month series of just every month a comic would come out, and that's where he made his first appearance. And so he is a character, and he's an ever-running, continual character in the DC universe and in Batman for sure. And he portrayed it exactly how I see it, him in the comic for sure.
And I think that the way that they're really making Gotham City this city of kind of mobsters, and there's the gang of dudes on the subway with the face paint. Like, there's a lot of textures to the city that you may not have noticed in the Christopher Nolan films because he didn't have as much time, or he didn't think that it meant as much. But in this movie, we've already seen different mobster guys. We've seen Oswald, we've seen Falcone, we've heard about Maroni. Like, there's already a lot of things going on, and we've already seen a couple of the gangs running around that Batman's beat the shit out of. So it really feels like a city that exists instead of just a place where the movie is set.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing about Falcone is that I thought he did a great job in it. He was, he's ruthless, and he's going to kill his own daughter, trying to. But the one thing that he was missing, but I think it's because it's early, is that when you see him in the comics, or people that know him, he has these scratch marks on his face, and they're usually like 3 scratches that go from his eye all the way down to his chin, and they're like deep gouges, and those were from Catwoman. Like in a fight, like a classic fight, Catwoman scratched his face. And then when I was watching the film, when her and Falcone were fighting, there was a moment where she scratched his face.
Yeah.
And then I'm left with, did he really die in the film or not? Or is he going to come back and maybe in a sequel with the scratches on his face? So that might be something to look forward to.
And you mentioned Chad Oz, aka the Penguin. Here's another example of me being completely ignorant going into this film. I watched this, and there was no opening credits unless I missed them. There was no names on the screen.
Yeah.
So again, I just got right into the movie, and I think that's another great thing they did. You just got right into the movie. You weren't distracted by anything. I watched the movie. I love the Penguin character. Came home, talked to our good friend Paul London. He's like, "What a transformation for Colin Farrell, huh?" And I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" That, and then I'm like, "Holy shit!" I watched him for near 3 hours and had zero idea that was Colin Farrell. And that, I think, it speaks volumes to his performance, to the makeup people, to everything. I mean, if you didn't know, you're not going to know that's Colin Farrell. And just a great character. And to see him he's kind of on the rise as the movie ends, obviously. If Carmine is indeed been taken out, I mean, he kind of has an opportunity to now become the new main mob guy. And I like that too, that, he's not just some weird penguin guy. He's a mobster. It's not like he's controlling penguins in the sewer.
Right.
Which was cool and all, but this is a very realistic take.
Yeah, it's realistic, but he still looks, kind of funky in the face, and he's got kind of a hook nose a little bit, and he's rotund.
And then when they did his bound his legs, so he was kind of had the
waddle.
Walk. Yeah, that was perfect.
But he's great. Colin Farrell, he was in the show The North Water. I don't know if you've seen that, but he is absolutely remarkable in that show, in that series. So And he had his moment, back, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. He, did SWAT, and he played Bullseye in Daredevil, and he overacted the shit out of that movie. And he's had like different points in his career where you felt like he was going to be like this leading man who was going to be in everything again, but it just somehow hasn't panned out, I guess. But now he seems to be back on the rise. So that's good to see him. And it's good that the character kind of got some love, and he didn't just get, the old one-off treatment where he's, taken down easily and thrown in prison.
Right.
Yeah, I felt it was excellent, an excellent portrayal of the Penguin. This is the character that like my wife said that she wanted more of the Riddler. I wanted more of Penguin as this movie played on. I felt like when I was watching him and I heard him speak, and in the role, and then as an actor, I feel like he channeled his inner like Al Pacino spirit, because it was really reminded me of Scarface and in a way, and a little bit of Godfather in a way, and I thought the gold teeth was just classic. He had like gold teeth on one side of his face, and he had scratches on another, and all the like the fatty makeup they put on his face, perfect.
Yeah, I would nominate this man for an Academy Award. I could tell you that right now.
He's great. And with so many superhero movies, and I think back, I'm not the biggest Marvel fan in the world. And I've seen a lot of the earlier ones, but I haven't seen one in several years at this point. But the thing that they always struggled with, I felt, were the villains.
Right.
And when it comes to Batman's Rogues Gallery, like,
it's the best.
Yeah, it's the absolute best. There's no other superhero character out there who have better villains than Batman. And you can bitch and moan and say Spider-Man's better, but they're not. Batman has the best. And in every film that's come out about Batman, the villains are always remarkable. They're always characters that you want to see again. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze. But
no. No.
Come on, that hockey fight scene was fantastic.
No. I thought we were talking about movies we love.
But it's Arnold. You gotta have to love it.
I do like Arnold, but man, not that portrayal of Mr. Freeze.
But in this film, I mean, I can't point to a single actor or single character that I thought was, subpar, that didn't bring it. And
right, like you would have picked somebody else for it. There's nobody. It's like, no, they got it right. They got it right for everyone.
Right. So I think you're hitting on is that if it takes four years to make a film, especially we'll say a Batman film, and as a Batman fan, a lifelong Batman fan, I would love to have a Batman film every year come out. But if it's going to, I don't care if it takes 4 years or 5 years, as long as you do it right, and you get the actors right, and they nail it right. And when I think this movie was in the making for a long time.
I know they had
worth the wait.
The COVID issue at some point, so they got shut down for a while. Because Robert Pattinson, I believe, got COVID, and then they had to shut it down. So it took them a while to get back going. But Lord have mercy, it was so good.
Yeah.
All right, one more main character that we haven't touched on yet, and then we'll kind of talk about some of our favorite scenes. Alfred. And I think this is one of the ones you kind of alluded to, I believe, Chad, how, there's so many people in here, they didn't all get as much screen time as you would think. I think Alfred was kind of one of those where obviously he gets put out of commission for a bit, so that explains why he's not in there too much. But Andy Serkis, who was Caesar in the Planet of the Apes movies you talked about.
Yeah, he had a working relationship with Matt Reeves, and he's probably not the name that you would have thought would play Alfred, because Alfred has become, in most of the films, he's an older guy. Michael Caine played him, and then I can't remember what was the Alfred. Who was the actor who played him in the Michael Keaton versions? I don't know. An old guy. Old bastard. Some old bastard played him in the earlier films. And he actually played him, I believe, in the 2 Schumacher movies as well.
He did.
Yeah, the Alfred and the Commissioner Gordon carried over, even though the Batman kept changing. So
Andy Serkis is quite a bit younger, I feel, than these other Alfreds, and for good reason. Batman's younger. He's new. His career has just started as a vigilante superhero, and I think that Andy Serkis has a lot more to do. Like you said, he wasn't in this film a lot. But I think his scenes are very poignant. Like they make a lot of sense. You know, a lot of this film is about Bruce Wayne's journey. You know, he's I was surprised at how much Batman we got in this film. I feel like he's more Batman in the movie
Yeah.
than he is Bruce
Oh yeah.
Wayne,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is phenomenal. I didn't expect that. But when he is Bruce Wayne, he's always thinking about Batman. You know,
Yeah.
you know, when we talk about like you know, Superman, he's, you know, him and the difference between Superman and Clark Kent is pretty big, but he's actually Clark Kent who dresses up as Superman. And Bruce Wayne is you know, he's Batman who dresses up as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And you feel it in this movie.
Yeah. Definitely the least amount of Bruce Wayne in any Batman movie.
Oh yeah.
Because
I
he
agree.
has no interest in being, like you said, he has no interest in being Bruce Wayne. He wants to be Batman. That's the family legacy in his eyes. Where Alfred kind of has to be that one who kind of keeps him grounded and somewhat in reality, because he could see this man is slipping away into a very dark place.
Yeah, you know, I was kind of, you know, we're talking back on Alfred. I was surprised too of how little of a role he had, and I think that what the screen time he got, I thought he did a very good job. He's a great actor, right? I mean, if you think, you know, through the Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, and he was in the bad guy in Black Panther. I mean, he's just a great actor, right? But his betrayal of Alfred in this one, and what I liked about how Matt Reeves tied it in, was like one of the lines that he said. You know, he was talking with Bruce Wayne, or it was when he was Batman. I can't remember if he was Bruce Wayne at the time or if he was wearing the costume, but he told him that he trained him how to fight. And why I think that's important is that Alfred Pennyworth has a story too, and Alfred Pennyworth is an ex British Secret Service agent,
Mm-hmm.
and there's comics written on him. There's stories. I even think there's a TV show, and I haven't seen it, but I'd like to. But he, you know, so they touched on Alfred's like skill set back in the day, and that he taught Bruce how to fight. So it wasn't that Bruce went over and trained with Ra's al Ghul and the League of Shadows and all that, but it was Alfred that taught him how to fight. And I just really thought that was a nice addition to this version of Pennyworth, which I think we're going to see more in the next films.
I think so, and it also rings true that so Alfred, I guess in the previous series and the previous movies, he always kind of has an answer to everything. You know, Batman gets hurt, Alfred fixes him up. Batman needs something, Alfred shows up with the right thing. And in this one, it makes a little more sense. You know, now you get a little bit of backstory on Alfred, and you have some idea that he's this. You know, he's not without combat in his past. So, like, you know, when he has to fix up Bruce's or Batman's injuries, like it makes sense that he would know how to, you know, splint his leg or whatever, you know, as we go forward, because he's, you know, seen combat and he's had to do it in the field. But yeah, it's a really cool idea that Alfred has like this trajectory as a character that isn't connected to Bruce Wayne.
Right. Or how to jump out of the way of an exploding bomb. Right.
It's important to know.
All right, let's talk favorite scenes, and I will go first so nobody steals it. The introduction of the Batmobile is so odd with that, just the, you know, and that's probably one of the most action packed, and being an action fanatic that I am. I mean, just that the roar of that engine, and just and again, being in the theater probably made that scene 1,000 times better. And then just the chase scene that follows, just great stuff. Great. That's probably my favorite action piece of the whole movie, Chad.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that scene is phenomenal, and it shows you what Matt Reeves is trying to accomplish here, with not just with the character of the Batman, but his gadgets and stuff. You know, everything that he uses has multiple uses, or it has some sort of imagery behind it, or he like the car is essentially its own character. It's horrifying, you know, when you see it kind of growling at people.
Right.
They're scared, you know, they're scared shitless. And then the bat signal comes up and we see the characters in the movie. You're like, oh crap. Like that was the whole point, you know, to make this guy more than just a man, but he's a myth. He's a legend. He's, you know, he's everywhere. He's in every shadow. He doesn't have to be there because they think he is. And I think that was what they're trying to do.
Ian, your favorite scene,
You
if you
know,
could pick one.
yeah, I know it's hard. It's and I never really thought of my favorite scene, and I should have thought this question was going to come. You know, I
And you
thought
know,
about all this other stuff. And I'm
I'll
like,
give you another minute to think, Cap.
don't steal mine.
I don't think this is going to be yours. But this isn't actually one single scene, so I'm gonna change it up a bit. But the way that Batman walks into every crime scene with Jim Gordon, I love that the way that they portray him as a character and the way that the police officers of Gotham City look at him, because you could see it. You know, Martinez is the one I remember. You know, like he's the character that appears multiple times throughout
Yeah,
the film.
the cop. Yeah,
Yeah. So every time that they have a crime scene, every time that Gordon brings Batman in to look at the crime scene itself, uh, the stares that he gets from the police officers, and it's a mixture of awe and confusion and like, why is this guy here? What the hell is this person? Who is this person? There's so many questions going through their minds in just a split second. And I think it's fantastic because it shows you that, the members of this police department are neither on board with him. They don't hate him. They don't love him. But gradually throughout the film, I think they start to respect the fact that he's solving shit, and no one else seems to be doing it.
Again, and that goes back to the realism. I mean, because if you had a police department and this guy in a bat suit showed up, and I would hope that those cops would be like, "What the hell what have we become?" But yeah, he proves himself, and you could see their attitude towards him changes as this whole thing progresses.
Yeah, and I think even going back a little bit further, I think this kind of points at what kind of person Jim Gordon is, right? Because if the officers don't respect Batman, they respect Jim Gordon, and because they respect Jim Gordon, they're allowing this freak in their what they call him, this freak, to come into their crime scenes, and it just, again, it's a groundwork for the Jim Gordon in the future, that he's probably going to be commissioner down the road, and that he's so well respected that this is allowed to continue.
Alrighty, and have you had enough time now?
Yeah, I have, Brain. There's a lot, right? There's a lot of scenes I really enjoyed in this, but the one that's coming to my mind right now is near the end. They're fighting. He's fighting these copycat, Riddler killers that are up on this suspended stage, and he's getting knocked down. Batman's getting knocked down. He got shot at a couple times. He's weak. He's been fighting 5 or 6 guys, and Catwoman's getting attacked, right? And he reaches in his pocket and he pulls out this vial, and this vial is like a green liquid, and he injects himself with it. And as soon as he injects himself with it, like the shot of adrenaline, he jumps up and he just goes to town on this guy, to the point that they all have to like stop him because he's going to town on this guy. And I'm like, love it. But a lot of the fight scenes were a lot like that, but really like that because one, I thought it was pretty aggressive and brutal, and that's the Batman that I like and enjoy and read about. But again, I was talking with my family, and my wife was like, that's probably Venom. And I went, oh my gosh, that is a great, and I can't believe I didn't think of that. And she thought of it, and it just tells you how much we talk about Batman in this household, that my wife knows about Venom. And she was absolutely right. She's absolutely right. I think that's what it was. And those who don't know what Venom is, it's just a chemical compound that Batman tried because he couldn't rescue a girl. A little girl died, and he wasn't strong enough, so he worked to develop this chemical that he could take to make himself stronger. And then eventually that got, into, Bane's hands, and that's a story of Bane. But that was my scene.
All right. Now, another scene I want to talk about that had, and again, my ignorance will come in here, where the Riddler gets thrown into Arkham, and he has a little neighbor. Now, I just assumed that was the Joker. But then I go online and I see maybe that wasn't the Joker, and people are questioning and wondering who the hell that guy was. So, Ian, in your expert opinion, who the hell was that guy?
Oh, it's a Joker, hands down.
Thank you. All
Yeah,
right. Well,
hands down. As soon as they give you a little glimpse. Okay, first of all, he's talking to him through the cells. So the Joker is notorious of being locked up almost all the time and
Mhm.
escaping all the time. But when he's in prison, he's always manipulating his cellmates. Always, like he just knows how to get into people's heads. And as soon as I saw the face talking, I'm like, and I heard the voice, I'm like, that's the Joker. And then I heard a couple laughs, and that's all it took.
Yeah.
yeah, and that's why when I just like, okay, so the Joker will be in the next movie, and then go online, and I mean, I know it's a lot of that's just clickbait bullcrap. You won't
Yeah.
get that on Bulletproof Action. We do
Absolutely not.
quality post, but yeah, I'm like, well, wait a minute. So then I started questioning because again, I freaking didn't know Colin Farrell was the Penguin. So what the hell do I know about the movie? So
At one point I thought, and I had read something the night it was released, something I'd come across Twitter or whatever, I don't know, and it had mentioned a surprise cameo at the end of the film, and I had no idea who it was, and I didn't read into it any further because I didn't want to know, but I kind of expected somehow this movie would end up in Arkham, but that there would be like an intercom message for a Dr. Quinn or something like that,
Right.
just to set up the fact that Harley Quinn was working there at Arkham. But yeah, this was even better. And Cap, just like you said, I think it was definitely Joker.
Oh yeah, yeah, hands down. And what I think would be neat in the future is if that you have the Joker, but he's not really a main character, but he's in the cell.
Yeah.
He's in the cell and he's just talking to, he's running the things from a cell and just talking to all the inmates.
I think that's a great idea. And I think that it works in the framework of this film in that this movie not only works as a long ass 3-hour superhero vigilante action thriller crime noir movie, it works because it sets up so many different like avenues that you can take. We can continue on with trying to take down Oswald Cobblepot. We can go after Maroni. We can go after Falcone's operation. We can. They set up. I mean, I love the Court of Owls. I think we've talked about that before. This sets up the framework for that with the powerful families of Gotham, and now we've met the Joker. We know that there are other people out there that exist, and I think that there's just so many places you can go after this film. It really is remarkable, and I'll be curious to see what they do next.
yeah, that's what it felt like to me. Like this, just not only did it lay the groundwork for the Batman, obviously, but is other or other DC movies now going to kind of follow, because it felt like the DC movies haven't had a voice, or at least one that people like. But I think this could be a great launching point for all future DC movies if they kind of follow a similar template to what this movie did, and if they eventually tie them in with other other characters with the Batman.
Yeah, and if you remember, at the end, Catwoman had two different ways that she could turn. She could go into the city or out of the city, and she chose to leave, which is great. But when Batman asked her where she was going, do you remember where she was going, Cap?
Yeah, she's going to Bloodhaven.
Bloodhaven, which is the city that Nightwing took up, correct?
Yes.
So that was a cool little Easter egg there for anyone who is a fan of Nightwing or the character of Dick Grayson.
Oh, Aaron Williams is.
Exactly. And that character shouldn't exist in that capacity yet, but it sets up the fact that that city exists and that it is there. And we also, I forgot to mention the reporter who was looking into Thomas Wayne.
Yeah.
And any lover of the comics will know that I believe his son becomes a very serious threat to Batman later on. And that's also set up in this film.
All right. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share, Ian, about the Batman?
Another thing I enjoyed was the twins. I know they were a small role, but they kept making an appearance throughout. It was a little bit of humor, which always helps. The first time that Batman visits the twins is when he shows up to the nightclub, and then he beats him up, and then the next time he shows up, he's a Bruce Wayne, and they look at him like they've seen him before, but they're not really quite sure. I thought the twins was a nice addition. I'd say overall, final thoughts on this film. an absolute slow burn. I felt from the very beginning when I sat down to the moment I left, it was just a slow burn. Like it never let up. Like Matt Reeves did a really good job of keeping it close. And I mean, when I mean keeping it close, like the framework of the camera, like almost always you were in someone's face or just panned out just a little bit. You never really backed up and gave you long scenes of like the city and these giant backdrops. You did get that, but you didn't get it a lot. So that closeness that I to these actors and to these areas never let me take a breath. Like I really felt like, all right, man, you gotta let me relax here just 5 seconds. Okay. Let me let me catch my breath. But it never let up the whole movie. Just an excellent job.
Yeah, and I think that's what helped make time go. I mean, it's a 3-hour movie or damn near 3 hours, but it didn't feel like it. It did not, it wasn't like you were looking at your watch or when is this thing going to be over? It flew by because you were so into the world that they were in the adventure they were taking you on. Chad Cruz, your final thoughts.
Yeah, it kind of did feel like 3 hours to me because I had to pee after like 45 minutes and I refused to get up. So it was tough. I did check my watch a couple times, but I was glued to the screen. I couldn't look away. And it's one of those movies that you're not going to want to look away because there's so much greatness on the film. The characters are all fantastic. The actors do a great job. You're not going to be complaining about things that it didn't feel like 3 hours because the pace of the film really never lets up. Like
right.
It moves from one scene to the next with just like juicy bits. Like you don't. And Cap, I believe you mentioned the movie Seven earlier, and it really does kind of remind you of that because they're really having to put the pieces of the puzzle together throughout the film. But along the way of putting the puzzle together, they're learning about themselves, they're learning about each other, they're trusting each other more, and the growth that you see throughout the film of the characters it's easily noticeable. I mean, you can, at the end of the film when Batman's like carrying people out of this
the arena.
Hurricane Katrina situation, there's this massive flood and the stadium's all messed up. He's carrying people out and he's dirty and he's grimy and he's tired and he's beat up and he's wrecked, but he's going back down for one more. And that's not something that Batman does at the beginning of the film, or it doesn't feel like a Batman movie at the beginning of the film. So you really get a journey. And I think that Matt Reeves can pretty much write his own ticket now after this film. So good for him.
Yeah.
But more than that, I'm excited to see what they'll do next. So that's a good sign.
Yeah. Oh, if you left that a 3-hour movie wanting more, he did one hell of a job. And I think I certainly did leave wanting more. And next time I will be much more in tune to what's going on. I'm not going to be so. Maybe I shouldn't though. Maybe that helped my enjoyment.
Yeah.
I was oblivious to most of what was going on. I'm in my own world where I watch 70s kung fu movies and professional wrestling. And
but you know what, Brain?
Reality doesn't really creep in too often.
You're a Christopher Reeves Superman guy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that's DC. So Batman shouldn't be far from that. And I believe that Cap will give you the nod because you are a DC Superman fan.
Yes.
And not some shitty Marvel Daredevil or not Daredevil, Deadpool fan.
Right. No.
That's what I say. There's only DC blood that flows through this body here. No Marvel blood.
All right. Well, Ian, we do want to thank you for joining us, and maybe we'll bring you back. Maybe we could talk about some of the other classic Batman movies. Probably not Batman and Robin, I'm guessing, though.
I'd love to talk about that too.
Okay, maybe we probably not as glowingly as we talked about this one. So
right.
And let me tell you, people, if you have not seen this one, you got to check it out. And if you're like me, and I think like Chad, and like a lot of people, if you have superhero movie fatigue, this is basically a actual action crime thriller that happens to have a superhero character in it. It's not a superhero movie like that you are used to. And to your point too, Ian, it's so close and it's so character focused. It's not a frickin' CGI fest.
Oh
yeah. Like, let's see how much shit we could throw on the screen at one time and just blow your mind. It's very character driven. It's very story driven. It is a very good movie. And Colin Farrell, you're getting the Academy Award is my prediction for your work, because you're awesome. All right. Speaking of awesome, Chad Cruz, do you know what we're going to do next time here on the Bulletproof Podcast?
I have no idea.
We will be just a few days away from WrestleMania, and you know we love to talk about wrestlers turn action stars, and we are going to turn it over to our fans, our listeners, because there's going to be a poll on our Twitter. You could see it right now as you're hearing this, if you're listening on day one, of course. If you're listening to this a month later, you're screwed, but at Bulletproof Pod on Twitter, we are going to put up 4 movies, and what a selection of WrestleMania main eventers we have to choose from, Chad. We're going to talk either Back in Action, starring Roddy Piper and Billy Blanks, The Condemned, starring Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rundown, featuring your favorite, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, or The Ultimate Weapon, starring the Hulkster, Hulk Hogan.
Oh, wow. I'm actually curious to see the result of the poll, because I feel like a couple of those movies are going to get next to none.
Right. Well,
So
who knows? Who knows?
you may have some Ultimate Weapon fans out there. I don't know.
People might just screw with us too and be like, let's make them watch
Yeah.
the shittiest of the 4 options to see what they're going to talk about. So
If we get The Condemned, I'm going to be smashing some Steve Weisers throughout the whole thing.
well, then I can't. Well, then now see you're leading the people on to what you want to do. All right,
the
but that's
poll's already up.
The poll's up, and yeah, check it out, vote, and that's what we're going to be talking about next time. Any final words, Chad? I know I ask this every time.
Yeah. And normally I
But
say
you know,
no.
normally, but yeah, this is a different Chad Cruz.
This is a different one.
Here we go.
I'm a changed man, and I don't want to say for sure that it was this scene that changed me, but that scene of Zoe Kravitz getting dressed was really great, and big fan of her now. Big fan.
Yeah, big fan. All right, well, you go take a cold shower. Ian, thank you very much again.
Thanks for
And
having
thank
me.
you all for listening, and as always, stay tuned for more of the Bulletproof Podcast.